Hello all. Today is another good, I did my hair. Today is another book review. This time it's on one called How to Read a Book. This is a classic book from the early 1970s. It was published 3 times, I think, under different amounts of text, rewritten, revised. Since the 1940s, it's considered an epic classic on how to read a book. It's about intelligently reading a book and becoming a demanding reader, being able to absorb as much as you can out of it. So the idea is, if you are the type of person who is trying to read a book, but for some reason you can't intellectualize the actual text, then this is the type of book you want to read. It's more for liberal arts and physical sciences like kinesiology or history, religious texts, being able to understand the Bible, that type of thing. It's not for any type of technical skill. It does have a mathematics section in it, and how to get better at mathematics, and the essence of getting better at mathematics and programming, according to how to go for technical skills, is to practice like chemistry, math, programming. You want to come up with a problem and find solutions and learn and memorize and understand these solutions. And that's basically how you get better at those technical things, right? That's the idea that he gives. A quick note about the author: he is agnostic. He's dead, for another thing, so you're not going to hear much about him. He got a doctorate a long time ago in a liberal degree, and I guess he died in 2001. There it is. He is old, okay? He lived 99 years. He wrote a large amount of books, but his number one book was How to Read a Book. And he avoids the Bible in How to Read a Book. Remember, he's agnostic. He has given sermons before, but as an agnostic academic, and he has gone into faith and out of the Christian faith throughout his life, and he's struggled with the ability to believe in Jesus, right? And that's his personal struggle, but that does not make him a bad author about how to intelligently absorb a book. And that's what this book is about. It doesn't really matter what his state of mind or spirituality was as an author when he wrote it. But if you look at all the books that Dr. Mortimer Adler wrote, you're going to find that they have low reviews. Amazon generally makes low reviewed products look high reviewed by the stars, but if you were to go over it and see the zoom, you could see like 55% on the 5-star. And look at this book. He says, How to Think About God for Pagans. And if you don't know what a pagan is, it's a person who is outside of the Abrahamic covenant. And he gives an agnostic discussion about the existence of God and how to think and classify the religions. And it's interesting, but it's not hardline Christianity. It's a very intellectualized way of thinking. Though How to Read a Book is a different story. It really is about being able to absorb a book, and it has nothing to do with religion. But just know the man himself does have some agnostic issues. So let's go to the print book. I'll show you guys the table of contents. So this was the first book I ever read. As you could see, it's a messed up book. It was right when I was trying to read the Bible. I was newly saved. I couldn't absorb the Bible. It was weird. Like the words were too big. There were too many unique words that I just didn't know. And the concepts of how Christ's resurrection, it was really hard for me to understand. And so I was looking for a way to intelligently read the Bible. I didn't want to misunderstand what I was reading. So I picked up this book, How to Read a Book, from Barnes & Noble. I took a look at this table of contents, and I thought, you know what, this is going to be really good. I'm going to try to read the Bible using these practical ideas of how to read. So this right here, the very end of the book, is about some topical reading, which is essentially what the Bible is. So when you read a book, how to read a book, the end goal is to be able to read multiple books about one subject and make an overall understanding of the subject in that time. And you could skip collecting all of these books and reading on it, and change to different topics, to different clusters of books. So essentially that's what the Bible is. It's 66 books or 71 books, depending if you're Catholic. The Apocrypha and all that. I really don't know how many there are when you add them together, though. But really, it's taking multiple books written by different authors on one subject and getting different points of views on it and coming up with the most accurate representation of God, right? That's the Bible. And he's saying you need to do that to all subjects. So if you don't do it, you basically end up uneducated. And most people are uneducated and they don't even know it. And that's his point of view through this book. So he says whenever you want to learn about one thing, let's say you want to learn about Java, then you take a bunch of resources for learning and you learn about Java with all of these resources. In his day, in the 1940s, the main source of learning was books. If you did not have the ability to go to the universities, you had to go to the libraries, and that was the source of reading back then. So he gives a classical mid-1940s to 1980s, before computers were popular, treatise or sort of complete manual into learning how to read from a book. And at the time, it was very influential. This book was a big hit. It was his one bestseller. And let's just go over it real quick. He starts off by talking about the idea of reading as an active skill. So he says that there's a common misconception that when you read, the book teaches you. But the reality is you're teaching yourself through the book, and you could be a poor teacher for yourself. So you try to gain the skill of reading. It's not something that is obtained automatically. You have to be able to learn how to read over time as you're reading. And he talks about how teachers are the author. You're sharing ideas with him, and that's basically the first chapter. And he goes into 4 different levels of reading when you are learning how to learn as you go on. The first level would be being able to sound out the words and meanings of each word, then sentences, then paragraphs, then pages, then chapters, and being able to take this chapter and come up with an overall idea or theme and understanding a concept from that chapter deeper, more specifically toward the subject of that chapter, like what is it about. So that's elementary reading. Then inspectional reading is when you're able to literally get a thick book, understand what the whole thing is about, and make a skeleton. He calls it X-raying the book for the skeleton. And the skeleton is basically the table of contents, but the issue is the table of contents can kind of oversell the actual content. So what he says is, first you read through the table of contents, then you read through the book, you read through each heading, and you try to get an idea of each chapter, and then you scan the book. So every single page you go through it all, and it takes time. If you're reading a 700-page book, I mean, it took me 4 days to scan through Kelly Starrett. He does a book for office workers or programmers for being able to better their health. And it's 700 pages. It took me 4 days to scan through it. And all I was doing was going through each page, just trying to get a general idea of each chapter. It was a lot of work, but it's worth it. And he talks about how to be a demanding reader. And if you can't tell, I'm very excited about this because I've read this book 3 times. It's awesome. And classifying a book, where it should go, being able to store your resources like Udemy type of thing or your books. He talks about it in a classical sense of having your own library, like in the 1950s type of thing. But today, I have a library online on my Kindle device, on my Udemy website. I have like a conglomerate of all my resources that I could go back to whenever I want to review something. And it talks about the role of vocabulary, learning to disagree and agree with the author while still reading the book. So he says that whenever you read a book and you disagree with the author, it has nothing to do with the author's competency. That even though you disagree with the book, it is still wise to read through it, especially when the subject is going to help you and you know it's going to help you, but you just disagree, and that it's irrational to use that prejudice to not help yourself. And he says reading lots of books is good, it's awesome, and just do it. So then after scanning, he talks about analytical reading. Analytical just means being able to understand the book overall. And he talks about different types of books. So how to read each different type of book, and it's super interesting, super nice. But remember, the closest you're going to get to programming is the mathematics section. And he says basically, with all technical skills, it's just practice. That's all it is. So if you want to get better at programming, just practice. Ultimate goal of reading is syntopical reading. And what that means is taking one subject, getting multiple books, let's say 10, scanning through each book and saying, okay, I'm going to read all 10 of these and I'm going to learn this subject. And he says a very small percentage of the population knows how to do this, and that in the mid-1900s, almost nobody did it, even though they went to the universities. There were people graduating with a master's degree and they could not focus on one subject for multiple books and texts. And he says that's a big issue. And essentially, when we're reading the Bible, that's what we're doing. We are taking one subject, which is God and Jesus, and probably Jewish history and the history of before Christ type of thing, and maybe up to 150 AD or whatever, right? So we're learning all that time in the Bible, and we're taking multiple books, we're becoming super smart, but just know you could do it with other subjects outside of the Bible, like Java or internet history, right? There are a bunch of memoirs on how the internet was created, and a lot of subjects. Personally, I like to do physical therapy, so right now I'm on my 8th book of physical therapy. I've been studying it for a month now, and I've seen some surprising results, and I love it. I love syntopical reading. I've done it before in different subjects, and I'm going to switch subjects soon, and we'll see how it goes. So that is How to Read a Book by Dr. Mortimer Adler. Just remember, he's an agnostic author. The book is about intelligently absorbing other books and how important it is to work on your mind and to not let it go. Alright, I hope you learned something. That's a book review on How to Read a Book.